Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on News X. Our big focus this hour on the 27th of March. An over 100-year-old Hindu temple was attacked in Rawalpindi, Pakistan by a group of unidentified people. As per police complaint, the incident took place at the Purana Kila area of the city. Around 10 to 15 people in fact stormed into the temple premises. The temple was undergoing renovation from last month, and on the 26th of March, the temple bells rang for the first time in 74 years. Rawalpindi police has now registered a case against unidentified miscreants for the incident. There is no doubt that Pakistan tries its best to portray itself as a savior of minorities and misses out no opportunity to pat its back before the international community. However, the reality is far contrary to hefty claims made by the Imran Khan-led government on the safety and security of the minority community in its country. Joining us to take this story forward is Dr.Waiel, South Asia analyst. We also have Abhijit Chavra, history researcher, joining us live. Sumit Peer, political commentator, joining the broadcast as well. Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, is with us as well on the program. Joyita, let me begin with you first. This is absolutely shocking and condemnable. And a temple, an over 100-year-old temple that was actually undergoing renovation, attacked, desecrated in this manner. What does it really say of Pakistan?
Well, Uday, first of all, it is not just condemnable, it is absolutely reprehensible. But at the same time, this is what is exactly has been going on in Pakistan. And right from the time Pakistan and India kind of separated and Pakistan was formed into a different nation, this has been continuing. And in fact, this is a reflection of the way the minority communities in Pakistan are treated, not just Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, and Ahmadiyyas also, they call them non-Muslim. So all these people, this is a reflection. In fact, here they have desecrated a temple, they have tried to destroy the work that has happened. What they do actually is that they play with people's lives, they try to murder people, they convert, women are raped and women are taken as a hostage and taken away. They are kidnapped, they are converted and made to marry men against their choice. People are segregated in terms of they regularly face. Discrimination is an everyday affair in Pakistan against the religious minorities. It is a largely homogeneous country when it comes to religion. They don't understand the meaning of diversity. They do not forget about secularism. They don't understand any of these things. And what we are witnessing is a reflection of that.
Okay, this is a reflection of that. But Pakistan, Dr. Awad, tries to tom-tom itself as a savior of minorities. Should that all be discounted? Because these sort of incidents expose the reality of the country despite what their heads of state might say.
Well, I echo what Jyoti have said on these issues. Exactly, this is what's happening in Pakistan. Any attack on any religious places anywhere in the world is a condemnable act. It's an act of violence against the house of God. The house of God are supposed to be places for worship, for peace, for anybody to practice his own rituals. But particularly in Pakistan, I think that's a clear reflection what is exactly the education has been affected so much by the Wahhabi Takfiri groups, not only against the Hindu and Christians and Ahmadiyya, but in general even against the Shia, have been systematic kind of an attack in religious places in Pakistan. And I think we as a Syrian, myself, in Syria and Iraq, we know how much the destruction have taken place at the hand of those who claim to be the savior of Islam, where they are the terrorists led by Erdogan, Turkey. They have destroyed the Syrian churches, the Syrian mosques. They have blown up every place of worships. And that's exactly what's going to happen in Pakistan, unless and until the government of Pakistan come forward and really take a stern actions. Because I remember a couple of months ago also there was a Pakistani have arrested more than 100 miscreants who have been also involved in more than 350 people were named in the FIR, where there was another Hindu temple was attacked. So this kind of a regular attack on worships, it's not only condemned by the international community, by activists, by all human rights groups, but also the Pakistani government is accountable to safeguard the interests of minorities and the shrines of every faith in this earth.
Okay, Sumit Peer, this is not the first such instance, is it? The fact is it's no coincidence that temples and gurdwaras are actually the shrines or religious places which are often attacked. The Muslim mosques are very rarely attacked in Pakistan. So it seems to be deliberate, isn't it? If miscreants often stormed into mosques as well, then one would say these are criminal elements, not looking at a particular religion. But it seems to only be temples and gurdwaras and churches which seem to be the target of these individuals within Pakistan. What explains this, Sumit?
Uday, first of all, thank you very much for having me on your show. You are absolutely right, sir. What you are seeing is the systematic persecution of minorities. You might be a Hindu, you might be a Sikh, you might be a Christian. For that matter, when a Ahmadiyya or a Hazara or a Shia, you are all treated the same thing. Let me reiterate. Uday, remember in December there was a temple which was decimated in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and there was a Maulvi Sahab who led a mob and who did that. We discussed on NewsX. The only point I told you that Uday, just wait for 3 months, we'll have one more incident. This happened exactly on the eve of Holi. This was to send a message to the Hindu community. Though this temple was taken over, there was no worship happening. Yes, some renovation was being carried out. After 74 years, you would have heard a worship or a ganti or a ganta being finally rung out. We could hear it after 75 years. But before that, they came and do what they are best at. This all is done to send a message to the Hindu community, sir. The population of Hindus is less than 2%. Let me tell you some interesting facts about Pakistan's why it is done, sir. 55s, you know the famous incident of Nankana Sahib, that was a Sikh shrine. You know what was done to the Granthi Sahib's daughter. Today, last year, only 55 Sikh girls were forcefully taken and converted. There is an inam, there's a reward announced of rupees 10 lakhs anybody who converts a Sikh girl. There's a reward similarly announced for a Hindu girl. There was one Christian girl, Aisha, if I remember, Aisha Farhan or something, if my memory serves me right. She was found in chains. She was a 13-year-old kid, Uday. She was found in chains. She was raped by a 65-year-old Sunni man, Punjabi man, and he thought it is all right because she's a Christian, I can do whatever, I'm supposed to do that. Blasphemy laws. Sir, 80 people were arrested. And in blasphemy law, as per the blasphemy law of Pakistan, somebody can be killed. 30 people were convicted to death. So when you look at all these things which are happening around us, this is one more incident in the chain. I always ask one question: what is Mr. Niazi going to do or ensure this incident will not happen again? The answer is again nothing. So there was a province in Punjab, I remember clearly on your show. I can't remember the name of the town. There the municipal commissioner went and told municipality, "Bhai, ye makan Hindu ka, ye makan Christian ka, isko tod do." So where the government, the municipal commissioner of a province is directing his forces and his bulldozers to disseminate Hindu and Christian properties. This happens in Pakistan. Temples happen in Pakistan. Nankana Sahib happens in Pakistan. This girl happens in Pakistan. And very recently there was a shocking video dying. A 13-year-old girl, less than 13-year-old bacha, was surrounded by 30, at least maybe 30 or 70 Maulvis, and they were trying to forcibly convert her. This happens under the watchful eye of Imran Khan Niazi. Pakistan Human Rights Commission, and even in the last report said this. Pakistan Minorities Commission, even in the official report of May 2020, said this. But the problem is what is going to happen? Nothing is going to change. And let me ask you this question. The people who did last temple vandalization in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, what happened to them? Kya saza mili unko? What are they again scot-free? Maybe most of them are out of the bail. So it is the government of Pakistan who is failing again and again and again to deliver on anything. And Hindus, unfortunately, have become the dartboard. When you have to settle a score, just go and vandalize a Hindu temple. When Virat Kohli hits a double century, have you forgotten that incident? They got hold of a Kohli girl and gang raped her. This is how they settle scores. Now, why is the Hindu population down to 2% from 18%? Where did the Hindus go? The Sikh population was 10 lakh at the time of partition. Today they are 4,006. Where have 99.9% of the Sikhs gone? If this can happen to Nankana Sahib, if this can happen to churches, if this can happen to Hindu girls, and Uday, remember that poor Sindhi girl who was raped and she was found naked with a piece of cloth tied to her neck, and we were told it is a suicide. I mean, more than 1,000 girls are forcibly converted. It is as per Pakistan Human Rights Commission. So when you throw data to them, when you give them the data, when you give the facts, they have no answer. And the problem is nothing is going to change. It is unfortunately that mentality. You want to settle the scores. What do you do? Find a temple, vandalize it. What do you do? Find a 13-year-old girl, do the child rape, convert her forcibly. No, this is the pervert mindset. This is your mental bankruptcy. This is what frustrated communities do. When you're a failing economy, you're a failing country, you're importing your atta and dal from the outside, and this is what you do. But for the sake of what, by vandalizing a temple, which place, which country, which jungle, which forest, or which mountain are you going to get a medal of honor? Answer that question to yourself. You are only demeaning your country, you're demeaning your religion, and you are leaving a very bad taste and of Pakistan to the whole world. Is this Pakistan is all about? Is vandalization of temples what is our national sport? Unfortunately, Uday, this is the case, and this is very disheartening. And let me tell you, sir, nothing is going to change unless and until Indian government starts now taking up this issue very seriously with the dispensation of Pakistan. Doesn't matter it is Niazi or Bajwa, whoever matters, we have to raise our stern protest to them, because this happens every quarter after quarter after quarter. One last statistics for Uday, 428 temples were there. Today, 408 have been disappeared. And let me tell you one shocking incident. Some of the temples, Hindu temples, are converted into bazaar, shops, garages, and even some of them are converted into cow slaughterhouses today. Cow slaughterhouses. This is historical data, and let them say it is not true. Back to you.
Okay, this is historical data. Abhijit Chavda, this is priceless history being vandalized in this manner. This was an over 100-year-old temple. Finally, its bells started ringing. Finally, there was work going on to restore it. It's happened in Rawalpindi. It's happened elsewhere. What can be done to ensure that history is not wiped out in this manner? And and just take us through the significance of temples like this one in Rawalpindi.
So this is part of an ancient pattern that has been going on for 1,000 years, and especially for the past 70 years. So there is nothing surprising about what's happened. Now, Pakistan has very ancient temples. Most of them are in ruins. This was a 100-year-old temple. And the people of Pakistan, the minorities who languish at the bottom of this society, have been suffering genocide, conversions, abductions, encroachment of land, destruction of temples, and far worse, it's a pattern, right? For example, the Kalash people of Chitral, who practice a very ancient form of Hinduism, it's almost like a Rigvedic form of Hinduism, they are also suffering from all of this. They are almost down to very little population today. Their ancestral lands have been taken away. So I think it is up to India to impose some pressure on Pakistan and stop what's happening over there. So how do we do it is the question. So to understand how we can put pressure on Pakistan, we only have to learn from our friends, the Israelis. For example, today in the world, nowhere in the world would a Jew be persecuted, because you know what happens when a nation persecutes Jews. There is a response from Israel, and it's a kinetic response. It's not just the soft power response, it's a hard power response. So India needs to start flexing its hard power muscles. We are obsessed with soft power. Soft power has a certain place in the world, but the real power is hard power. And when India, a country of our magnitude and our potential and our strength, when we finally start to exercise our soft power in the right directions, that's when I think that the condition of the minorities, especially the Hindus and Sikhs in Pakistan, could possibly improve. So there are two options. Either we make India the only home of the people of the dharmic faiths, or we exercise our soft power and coerce other countries who are intolerant and barbaric to stop doing what they are doing. So these are the only two options. Now the first option, that India should be the only home of the dharmic faiths, that is not going to happen, because we are a supposedly secular society, secular nation by definition, and it's not going to change very soon. So the only option, in my opinion, is to start exercising our hard power and start imposing a price on such actions.
Indeed. Joyita wants to come back in. Go ahead, Joyita.
Yeah, Uday, when we are talking about exerting pressure, and you see one area where we are failing miserably is that, say, for example, countering the narrative that Pakistan is building against India as a religiously intolerant society, so much so the Western world and all these human rights bodies, they are talking about religious intolerance in India, oppression of the minorities in India, without one word being said about Pakistan. How is it possible when you look at it, when its minority population from say 30%, it has come down to a total of 3%, and that includes Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, and every minority population, barely 3%. We are looking at a country like that, and for us to be facing censure from world bodies, or not world bodies, perhaps different kind of NGOs and human rights organizations, and I would say the Western media, all sorts of things. They will talk about human rights and the rights of minorities. Where is the censuring of Pakistan? There's nothing. So aren't we also failing in highlighting the plight of the minorities to the world community? Isn't that India's duty as well? So when we are talking about, because Pakistan will not change. I mean, Imran Khan is the one who will go around calling us fascists and all that, when in his own backyard, the minorities are facing the worst kind of oppression. So we have to take it up ourselves and just tell the world that, listen, don't fall for propaganda by a country which is basically an anti-minority, a rogue country. But we have not done that.
We haven't done that. Dr. Waiel, what should India do next? How should India lodge our strong objection to this particular incident, but also convey it to the world at large about the reality of what's happening in Pakistan?
Well, I think India have already made it very clear for the international community, and already were vocal in the United Nations, even when they were speaking about the suppression happening to minorities in Pakistan. That's not. I don't think that is India have been falling back on these issues. But my point here is very clear. If there are temples that have been built or restored in UAE and Qatar, in Bahrain and Oman, and in near to India, in Pakistan, it has been destroyed. I think there are many things to meet the eyes. We need to understand the depth of the problem in Pakistan. The depth of the problem in Pakistan is the anti-India sentiments have been developed over the years by the establishment. That is one of the main reasons. Secondly, also the religious bodies of Pakistan, which have got the teaching and the thought and the doctrine of the Wahhabi from Saudi Arabia, they have already developed. Even our mosques in Syria were not spared by these people. You can imagine what kind of a society you are building, and a hard radicals, which they are already taking the lead and provoking and inciting public, where you have developed all these issues. So I think in terms of India alone cannot do it. It is a collective measure by the global body. There is United Nations, which already have taken these issues many times, and they have come up with certain plans that we have to have the civil society, we have to have a dialogue, you have to have a kind of communication training and expert. There are lots of things have been put on the table to make sure that all shrines all over the world should be protected, and no shrine should be attacked by any soul wolf or by any fundamentalist. So therefore, I think India is very strongly on this issue. Pakistan government is the sole responsible to protect the shrines. If are unable to protect, then let us have an international body. I am talking like this because when we were attacked in Syria, the Daesh and the Al-Qaeda and terrorist organization ISIS, they were attacking all religious places. We needed some certain forces to be implemented in certain shrines, in certain places where they're protecting it. So there is a mindset of these people to destroy on the name of God, that they are promoting a religion of one sort of religion. They have nothing to do with the religion. These are the traders of religion. They have nothing to do with any faith. There is no faith can allow anybody to destroy any worship. Because if I can pray in the temple, I pray in the synagogue, I pray in the mosque, and I pray inside the church, I can pray anywhere, because these are the house of God. It has nothing to do with any following of any religion. So let's put it very straightforward. Pakistan is the sole responsible for what is happening in the midst there, and I think it should be held accountable for that.
Okay. Abhijit Chavda, clearly, of course, perhaps it's time for historical, bodies like UNESCO also to wake up and take notice. I mean, it's time for cultural organizations, international heritage organizations to also wake up and take note of how this pattern is building up in Pakistan, and perhaps they also need to lodge strong objection.
Yes, it is time for the international bodies to wake up and take some action. The thing
Okay, I think we've just lost Abhijit's connection there. We'll just try and get him back. Sumit Peer, why don't you come in there?
That they will wake up and some in 1971, the Pakistanis killed, whole world condemned it or mostly ignored it. So this has been happening. Pakistan has been getting away with this for a very, very long time. International condemnations are not going to do anything. And changing the narrative, for example, like Pakistan is not setting the narrative. It is the West which is setting the narrative. And Pakistan is one small cog in that machinery, this anti-India narrative that is all over the West. So it is time for India to take hold of our narrative, take control of the narrative. And secondly, we need to impose genuine costs on Pakistan. We need to stop relying on other nations and on international bodies, the United Nations, UNESCO, etc.
I think we're having some trouble with Abhijit's connection. Sumit Peer, let me quickly go back across to you at this point. Sumit, the big question, of course, is why Imran Khan is silent? Why no one in Pakistan is speaking out and condemning this incident?
Uday, Imran Khan came with a mandate Naya Pakistan. I want to ask him one question to Niazi. Is this the Naya Pakistan? Is this what you do to a 100-year-old temple? Are you scared of a 100-year-old temple? There are Pakistani generals on record, Uday, and you can find them on the YouTube who are still saying...
We have been trying that for 70 years. How long do we keep expecting different results from time to time?
They're still talking that Ghazwa Hind is on. They're talking that 71 war, 65 war, and even the war on today's border is a part of Ghazwa Hind. This is the hatred when you bring your generations on. This is the hatred what you feed to your generations. You have already wasted 70 years trying to, do whatever you have to do. You have been trying to get Kashmir. You didn't get an inch of it. Now you have reached a state of no return. Today in Pakistan, Hindu is not safe, Sikh is not safe, Christian is not safe. Remember Hazaras when they were killed on the road and the Lashkar-e-Jangvi uploaded their video on the internet and said, look, any Shia in Pakistan, this is what we'll do to him. Now look at the Pashtun women who were going for a vocational training, they were killed there. So, it is a domination of Sunni, Punjabi, Muslim who think that they own the Pakistan, they are the owners of the Pakistan. Remember the famous dialogue of the Pakistani general when Bangladesh was liberated in 1971. He said in Punjabi, "Acha ho gaya, pukke nange Bangladeshi gaye." My Punjabi is not so good, but he said, "Pukke nange Bangladeshi gaye, sappa kata." That is what they think about the follow Bangladeshis. Again, Hazaras are Muslim, right? Bangladeshis are Muslim, Shias are Muslim. If this is the plight of Muslims in Naya Pakistan, if this is what they think about Bangladeshis, forget Hindus, forget Sardars, forget Christians. It is horrible, Uday, and this cannot happen without government working in hand in glove with this. If this has happened in Pakistan, who is responsible? Only one Niazi. But I have one thing which I want to make a point. If Pakistan talks to us about Kashmir, they have no local idea, right? They have no bloody business in Kashmir. But still they talk Kashmir, Kashmir, Kashmir. Why we are not including decimation of temples? Why are we are not including atrocities against minorities, Hindu minorities especially, in our talks as a pivotal point with Pakistan? Why United States of America and other Christians are not talking about the plight of Christians to Pakistan? Why countries like Iran are not taking Pakistan, holding them accountable for the plight of Shias? Why India is not talking about the Sikhs? So unless and until we really start making them as a focal point of our any discussion or interaction with them, making them as a pivot. Look, our discussion and interaction will go around this point. Uday, you see, I have seen the plight of Sharda Peeth. It is in shambles. This 100-year-old temple, abhi kuch shuru nahi hua tha. They were so scared that on the eve of the holy, they have to come and destroy it. What happened to the last temple decimation in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa? What happened to that Maulvi? What happened to those arrests which you made? Nothing. And what is the guarantee? No new attack will not happen. Answer is goddamn nothing. Will Niazi come and guarantee a new attack will not happen? He will not happen. He will disappear. But when it comes to giving those pleasantries or holy coming on Twitter and wishing, oh, IP holy, ek photo khichwa li, smile kar liya, that is all they do. But when it comes to vaccines under the Gavi, unless they will take all the vaccines from us. They will take all the vaccines from us and use it. Then India is all okay. But when it comes to decimation of temples, they will be silent. The problem is, what are we doing? Why this is not a part of our agenda and discussion with Pakistan? Like if they want to talk about Kashmir, let's talk about the temples. Let's talk about the Hindu minorities. Unless and until we really make them pay for this, we really make them known internationally about what they have done. We really let the world know. And why the Americans and the biggest Christian countries are not talking about it, why Iran is not talking about Shias, the world has to start talking to them. this Punjabi Sunni domination is getting fatally dangerous. They want to decimate everybody around, and they are doing it organized. They are doing it under purpose. They are doing it systematically. Uday, out of 428 temples I told you last time, 408 have disappeared. Now tell me, for the sake of God, if you want to have a cow slaughterhouse, can't you have any other infrastructure? Why do you make an Hindu temple as a cow slaughterhouse? Kya wrong hai? What is wrong in your head? What the hell is wrong in your brains? Why have you gone bananas? Why have you gone so radicalized? What message do you want to send? And is the world going to change? Is India going to change? No, it's not going to change. Are you going to become a powerful country? No. You are back to shambles. You are in a begging bowl with your hand. Still, you are doing this. See the plight. See the amount of radicalism which is in their heads. And we have to really take them on, Uday. Too much. बहुत हो गया, sir. बहुत बात हो गई. Uday.
Okay, Abhijit Chavra, complete your point. You're back with us. Just finish the point you were making before we lost you, and then I have to take a break. Abhijit, go ahead.
Uday, can you hear me? Okay, so this is what the position is. So this cannot go like this.
Abhijit, can you hear me? Sumit?
You remind me of one thing which is happening in our country. They have digged the 3,000-year-old grave of the gods of Palmeiras, and in that it was engraved on the stone, to not despise the God you don't worship. And I think if we follow our civilization line, all of us should follow on line of respecting other religions. That's my take on this.
All right, let's leave it at that. My thanks to our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.